Welcome to the Explainer. Look, if you've been tracking the latest regulations, you already know carbon accounting is no longer just a PR exercise. It's hard data now. Today we're diving into how live AI carbon monitoring can actually transform your supply chain compliance from what's normally a massive manual headache into a major financial win. Because here's the secret. Getting the right tech in place doesn't just keep the regulators off your back, it's literally going to save you serious money. Let's start right off the bat with this massive number. $2.1 million. That's the staggering carbon tax penalty per $100 million in revenue that companies are risking right now if they don't have proper tracking in place. Trying to manage that kind of risk with just rough estimates, it's kind of like trying to balance a $100 million corporate budget on a paper napkin. The era of clunky spreadsheets is officially over, and the financial penalties for getting this wrong are absolutely severe enough to permanently damage your bottom line. So here's what we're covering in today's Explainer. First, the 2026 compliance deadline. Second, what exactly AI carbon monitoring is. Third, a really practical 3-step implementation guide. Fourth, we'll compare the top AI tracking tools. And finally, we'll look at the real-world ROI and savings. All right, moving into Section 1, the 2026 compliance deadline. So time is definitely ticking here. With the SEC's climate rule mandating comprehensive Scope 3 emissions reporting by 2026 for large public companies, relying on slow manual data collection is just not a viable business strategy anymore. Now, as a quick refresher, Scope 3 covers all the indirect emissions in your value chain. That means you're now on the hook for the carbon footprint of your suppliers. If you wait until 2025 to even start thinking about this, you're going to get caught in a massive bottleneck. The really successful companies, they're already allocating their budgets and running parallel tracking audits right now, well ahead of that 2026 deadline. Which brings us to Section 2. What is AI carbon monitoring? Think of live AI carbon monitoring as basically a financial ledger, but for carbon. So every single transaction, every shipment, and every production step gets instantly logged with its precise emissions footprint. You wouldn't run a $100 million company's finances on some unverified, messy Excel spreadsheet, right? Well, you can't run your carbon accounting that way either. These machine learning algorithms actually connect directly to your ERP, logistics, and procurement systems, so they can pull that data seamlessly in real time. And the contrast here is just wild. Trying to do this manually is literally like trying to count beans in the dark. Companies that actually make the switch to automated AI monitoring reduce the reporting errors by an incredible 78%. And the reporting latency, it drops from a sluggish 45 days down to just 7 days. At the same time, data accuracy tightens up from a pretty loose plus or minus 12% down to an impressive 4%. So ultimately, organizations using this real-time monitoring are hitting compliance 23.4% faster than their competitors. That is a huge advantage. Okay, Section 3, a 3-step implementation guide. So how do you actually roll this out across a complex network? It's highly effective if you just stick to a simple 3-step action plan. Step 1. You map your supply chain baseline. You do this by exporting your ERP vendor list and categorizing direct and indirect scopes using standard EPA or IPCC databases. Step 2 is absolutely crucial. You have to configure tools strictly via automated APIs. A big warning here. Definitely avoid tools that ask for manual data uploads because true live monitoring requires those automated data connectors. And finally, Step 3. You run parallel tracking. Basically, you compare your brand new AI estimates against your old manual calculations for 30 days. You're looking for an acceptable variance of plus or minus 5% for Scope 1 and 2, and maybe around 15% for Scope 3. Now, if the idea of tracking data from hundreds of tiny mom-and-pop suppliers is stressing you out, don't panic, look at this. Your top 20 suppliers typically account for 80% of your total supply chain emissions. By targeting that core group first, you're going to yield actionable results in literally minutes. And you drastically reduce your implementation risk by about 40%. Seriously, don't try to boil the ocean on day one. Start where the biggest impact is. Moving on to Section 4, comparing AI tracking tools. When you're evaluating your options, you'll see that different tools serve different needs. For most mid-market manufacturing companies, CarbonTrack Pro offers a really fantastic balance. For $45,000 a year, it gives you full API access and SEC-ready reports. Now, if you're in retail or e-commerce, EcoChain AI at $28,500 might be your sweet spot, though you should note its API access and scope coverage are a bit more limited. Meanwhile, massive enterprise clients who have those super complex multi-tier supply chains, they can easily justify GreenSight's $89,000 price tag to get custom machine learning models and Tier 4 network coverage. Oh, and here's a quick pro tip for you. Always factor in hidden costs. You'll definitely want to budget an extra 5 to 25 grand just for API integration development. Finally, Section 5, Real-World ROI and Savings. Let's look at a real-world example of a $450 million revenue automotive supplier. By putting live tracking in place, they successfully identified 3 high-emission logistics routes that they were previously completely blind to. So they optimized those shipping routes, and guess what? It reduced their Scope 3 emissions by 18%. They invested $68,000 upfront, but that yielded $210,000 in annual fuel savings alone. And when you add in the $145,000 in avoided carbon taxes, they saw a massive 287% return over 3 years. That is a lightning-fast payback period of just 14.2 months. And you know what? That automotive example totally wasn't a fluke. Across major industries, from manufacturing and tech to retail and agriculture, the initial implementation costs are very quickly eclipsed by the annual savings. On average, across all these sectors, companies are seeing incredibly fast payback periods, usually averaging somewhere between 16 and 22 months. So implementing AI monitoring literally pays for itself in under 2 years. It's a complete no-brainer. This is really where we move from playing defense to playing offense. Once your system is live and integrated, you aren't just looking backward and reporting history, you're actively leveraging predictive analytics. You can use dynamic routing, where the AI actively suggests lower emission shipping options in real time. That can save you 8 to 12% on transport emissions right off the bat. You can use automated supplier scoring to flag high-emission vendors so you can renegotiate with them. You can even set up carbon budgeting, which sends automatic alerts to your department heads the exact moment they hit 80% of their allocated emissions allowance for the quarter. But there is a golden rule here when managing compliance, and that is absolute transparency. Look, you will inevitably have some data gaps, especially from smaller suppliers. But you must document all your assumptions and never, ever, secretly backfill missing data with estimates. If you absolutely have to use an industry average emission factor, you need to label it clearly with its confidence intervals. Regulators are looking for honest, auditable ledgers, and they will severely penalize any undisclosed approximations. So, we've seen those massive $2.1 million risks. We've talked about the sluggish lag of manual audits, and we've walked through the proven 14 to 22-month return on investment when you automate your carbon ledger. You now have the tools and that clear 3-step roadmap to get started today, starting right there with your top 20 suppliers. Given the fast-approaching deadlines and the profound operational savings sitting right there on the table, the only question left for operations leaders and executives is this: will your supply chain data be SEC ready by 2026, or is your bottom line going to be left paying the ultimate price?